Hello, hello. I'm really
Hello.
excited to finally have you.
Great. I'm excited to be here.
This is Rebecca Dalmas.
Good morning.
Happy Monday, everyone. First off, I got to say thank you very much to Knockabout and Mashpee Commons. They hosted our first Christmas market yesterday. It was wild. There were goats. We recreated the Nutcracker. So there was Tchaikovsky playing. Put
Wow.
yourself, envision it, with
Tchaikovsky and goats.
goats with tutus on. And our friend Robert Loomis was the director of all of the madness, recanting the tale of the Nutcracker while the music was playing, and then trying to wrangle goats. And then he had all these props that he made that he was dangling over, and the Rat King was destroyed. It was a riot. We had a really, really good day. And
That
the
sounds
weather
like fun.
cooperated.
Yeah, yesterday was amazing.
Yeah, because you never know what it's going to be in December.
No.
We roll the dice, everyone. So you're probably wondering, what is Stephanie doing today? What's new, Cape Cod? We've got Rebecca here. Rebecca and I connected at a business breakfast, and I was really intrigued by what you were talking about.
I get out and I talk about it to as many people as possible.
Well, I
It's
think
an important message.
it really is. We're talking about the education of our children first and foremost. And I had just wrapped up a meeting with a child group that I work with. I work with a lot of organizations, Children's Museum, Boys and Girls Club, some other educational components. And we were having this conversation about how our younger children are really struggling with reading and really struggling with the attention.
Focus.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can see it. I've worked in the schools with the children, and one of the things that I thought was, no, wait a minute. Like, it's that there are problems with focus, and
Hmm.
we have chronic focus problems. I mean, ADD, ADHD, autism, dissociative disorders, chronic anxiety, they're all focus problems.
Yeah.
That's the way that I see it. So that's what got me involved in what it is that I'm doing.
Well, and in your opinion, people are giving you a little bit of a hard time about it. So I really wanted to talk about what it is that you do, your story, and how you arrived at this program, because I think it's really incredible. And I think that more people are open to a different way to education.
Yeah, I mean, if we keep doing the same thing again and again and expect a different outcome, that's the definition of insanity
Right,
right
right.
there.
Granted, we're all a little bit crazy. Let's
Yeah.
go. We're here, but I think that there is a great message in what you're saying. Is I think a lot of people are starting to finally accept and take the reins of, we got to do something a little bit different because it's not
Yeah.
working right now.
It's our bodies are somewhat like computers. So the input becomes the output. So my story is that I was playing violin for many, many years. I studied in New York. And in the course of that, into my adulthood, I started to realize, God, how my body works. I
And you
real
didn't just like play the violin. She was classically trained. Like, you're very
yeah,
good.
I studied I studied through Juilliard, and I ended up in Europe, and I played with chamber orchestra. So I was more a chamber orchestra player, which is very demanding. So through the years, in my 20s, I studied with a master, and one day he said to me, "It's not the number of hours you practice; it's how you focus within what you're doing." And that
Hmm.
was, I was in New York, and I was
You're
like,
like,
"What does
wait,
that mean?"
what?
Yeah, because you're told you have to
I'm supposed
repeat
to be
and learn
locked in
by
a
rote.
room and
Right,
practice
right.
forever and ever. That's
So
how I get good.
it took me quite a while to figure it out, but I realized if I practiced and I was worrying about how my friend Susie criticized me, then when I got up on stage and played, the resonance of that dialogue in my head was still spinning while I was playing. So I had to learn how to focus when I practiced in such a way that it was pure focus. And one of the things that I used often, if I ran into a passage that I didn't understand, I would take it apart. I would deconstruct it. I would narrow the focus. I would use a metronome to narrow my focus and get that phrase, do it, look at it from different angles until suddenly it clicked. We do a similar thing when we play sports, when they put cones on a field. Those are all narrowing of the focus mechanisms. Media also uses it for something that's not good.
Yeah.
With all this music and all this flashing and brightness and everything, it's so passive. You sit there and you never self-generate. So that's another layer of the problem that we have with our children today. There's too much passive non-engagement, non-physical
I
engagement.
call it blob brain. I
Yeah.
watch my children just slowly melt as they're watching their videos, and I'm like,
Yeah.
"What is no, 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 no." Like, we
I mean,
need to get up and out.
we have these bodies and we have to use them. And ironically, in education, there's something called accelerated learning. And that's when you engage all the senses, which is astounding.
Right.
So anyway, through the years of practicing, I could learn a piece pretty quickly, especially if my chops were up. And then if I practiced correctly, when I got on stage and the unexpected happened, I could deal with it. Like the acoustics changing in the room or the flute player having drank too much the night before, your changeability was higher. What's interesting, I have a master's of education in reading. All the research in reading suggests that the more words you know and the definitions behind the words being clear, the more changeability you have,
Okay.
which is, yeah, it's like you've got a network of tools as words to clarify you, to direct you. So,
It makes sense. More
yeah,
tools in your toolbox, you do a better job.
right. So, unfortunately, at 38, my husband died. And I
That's
had 2
awful.
children who were 7 and 9, so I thought, "Okay, what am I gonna do now?" Because I couldn't go on tour, I no longer had a husband. So I thought, "What do I really like?" I really like to read. My father was a journalist, so I was an avid reader, and I had taught some children violin, and I noticed when they were structured properly, they started to self-generate, and it was like they were moving. I was like, "That is really cool."
Good morning, Helen. Thanks for joining us. We're talking to Rebecca Dalmas, and she's talking about her journey to this new educational process, but it's something that you went through physically yourself.
Yes, yes. So I thought, I really like seeing that expression, that movement in that child. That was really, really cool. So I thought, okay, I like to read and I like seeing that joy in children.
Well, when you see the actual workings of the gear and you're like, "Holy cow, you got it." And it's
Right.
really a magical moment.
And at that time I hadn't really tied it all together, but it also related to my own experience of slowing down, really knowing what was going on in me when I practiced. And also the tools of when something got kind of loopy and I couldn't grasp it, to take it apart and to narrow my focus. So my husband died and I went back to school and I got a degree in elementary ed and a master's of education in reading. And during that process, I was looking at children and all of this was coming together. So one day I was in a fourth grade classroom teaching children long division and I thought, oh my God, they have all these different things layered within them from their experiences
Mhm.
in the absence of having the structure. And I thought, I have this lesson to teach. I can't, it's impossible for me to answer to everything in every child.
Right, there's just too many kids in a classroom and we're so neurodivergent at this point in time.
Right. And
Everyone
so,
learns a different way, and it's really not being addressed as a blanket educational situation. Good
yeah.
morning, Ashley.
And so, really, you're building your neurons and they create an inner GPS. So, if your neurons are not well built, how can you direct yourself? How can you focus yourself?
Mhm.
So, in this classroom, in this fourth grade, I thought, well, words are the notes.
It
So,
makes
and if you
sense coming
don't,
from your Juilliard background to
right.
put it into the fashion for your
So,
brain to get.
when you practice something you physically generate, you say, speak, write, the words, and you really know them, then like riding a bike or driving a car, tying your shoes. When you first do it, it's really slow.
Mhm.
And then you can do it so well, you can be tying your shoe and carry on a conversation, where in the beginning you couldn't do that. So if you really knew your words and they were structured properly and your neurons were built to really fire fluidly, then you could put your presence, just like tying a shoe, into all the relationships happening around you and
Mhm.
within yourself. So you can, realize, oh my God, I feel really insecure next to this person. Now, why do I feel that way? And then you can sort it out. But if you have had too, what you repeat becomes your unconscious programming. So if you repeat and repeat insecurity and that, oh, I don't know how to name that. I don't know what to name this, then it all becomes a chaos.
Mhm.
And that's what I was seeing in the room. And then it all came together. And I thought, so
That's
how
just good for regular life. Good morning, Kayla, and also Doug. I feel like that is what we all do this, where we tamp it down, whatever BS we've got going on in our life and our day, and
right,
it just becomes this huge thing that we don't want to address. I
right,
mean, this is what our kids are doing on a small level, but that stacks over their lifetime.
right.
So,
And they also absorb the parents.
yeah.
They absorb the parents' compounded, unresolved things.
Mhm.
And in a way, those things are a gift because they're showing you where maybe you have a belief, because we've all had beliefs
Mhm.
that we were like, why did I ever believe that? And so the children are absorbing this, and then that's not resolved. And it's a hard work
Yeah.
to push all that down. But there's a Ken Anderson, a Robinson TED talk where he talks about how children up until the age of 7 learn rapidly, and then something happens by the 3rd grade where they can't think of 100 ways to use a clothespin, whereas before they could do that. So that, there's a busyness in pushing down those unresolved things, a lack of structure to name them and resolve them and move through them, because in a way they're a gift.
Well, that makes sense. I mean, think about it. Your mind is kind of like a computer. So when you have 4,000 tabs and 85 apps running, nothing is going
Exactly.
to run very fast.
Right, right. So that's the same thing. So this tool, Techno Tutor, the man that created it actually found me because I was talking online about this. And I thought, how can I get the words in without pictures and rebuild? So that the children, like just as I saw with that child with the violin, when he was structured properly, he just started to fly. And so that's what Techno Tutor is. So I went out and I got it, and I went and I worked with children for free. And I will actually do this. I will come to your house and I will sit down and I will show you how this works, because it is something that you have to experience and not think about. So the first child that I worked with, after 20 days, and it was just 20 minutes a day, she came running in and she said, "Oh my God, mommy, the school wants to know what you're doing because you got me to read and they didn't." And I was like, "Oh my God."
Like,
That,
I'm going to be unpopular.
yeah.
But also, I did a thing. I mean, that's kind of incredible.
Yeah, and then the second boy that I worked with, because I needed to prove to myself that my idea of what I did in music would work with a tool that's much like a metronome called Techno Tutor. So the second child I worked with, the librarian in the school noticed the change in the child. He went from, like, when the whole body's in friction and tension and you have a
It's
child that's
stressful when you don't get
struggling.
it and they're speaking another language to
Yeah,
you and you don't process it.
yeah, because you can go to a class and it's so different from your home, and the teacher's speaking and she's talking about, in 3rd grade, they always do the Egyptian pyramid uh, thing. And if all the
I
language is
remember
so
that vividly.
strange and you can't absorb it like Pharaoh and all these things, you're going to get unnerved. And so if you do that multiple times, then you're unnerved about school and then you feel insecure about yourself. But we are amazing when we're structured properly. So Techno Tutor is a tool to, just using it a little bit every day, you rebuild the neurons, you you practice the words with that natural learning, that physical learning, that accelerated learning. And the children know the words like tying your shoe, or how we know how to drive a car, that they can open up their presence back into processing everything that's going on in the world. So you open up their natural learning ability. And it's amazing. It is a joy to see the changes in the children. So this, I thought, we're told that we don't know how things work, but actually we do. We have the great power to understand how we work.
That's also unpopular. Good morning, Dave Hegner. Thank you so much for joining us. Sarah, thank you for joining us. We're talking to Rebecca Dalmas. She is our techno tutor, and we're just talking about really reaching our children where they're at right now. And I feel like we get swept up in the busyness of everything that we're not really processing anything thoroughly.
Yeah, yeah. And words are tools to call things out by name. And then we have the power to understand things, the power to understand what's going on within us and actively participate in it and call it out by name. And there's a famous fairy tale, the Rumpelstiltskin fairy tale, where the whole point of the story is when you can call something out by name, it no longer has power over you. And then you come to be able to direct yourself. So, what might this look like for a child? For example, let's say they're doing long division and they really know the words to as placeholders of the information. So they go to class, they're comfortable with the words, they're comfortable speaking with the words, and the teacher starts talking about long division. They don't have to think about the words or go into their insecurities. They start to structure themselves and be able to hear what the teacher's saying and see the interrelationships of what's going on and process what's going on. So what is going to happen when they're able to do that?
Well, they're going to learn faster.
Their self-confidence,
Yeah.
their self-esteem. So it's interesting when you actually are working with the children, it's just a little bit every day. It's like you see the pouting or the frustration, it's like falls away.
Well, because you're not frustrated by not understanding what's happening.
Yeah,
You
but it's astounding. And that's when I got to the point where, oh, you can actually see the resonance of experiences in us, around us. And we all know that our children, any parent knows that your child, when they're young, they're amazing.
Yeah.
There's the innocence in them and the awe for life and the desire to participate in life and to engage with other people is natural.
Mhm.
So the essence of our children is to participate. And there are stories that I know. There's one boy in school, his very dysfunctional home life, and his parents basically didn't even get him up for school. He got himself up for school every day, and he came to school all by himself. Third grade level.
That makes me sad, but also amazing because like they're ready to learn. I'm not getting anything here. I'm going to school.
Right,
Maybe I'll
right.
get something there.
I like that story because it does show the intrinsic desire to participate in life,
Yeah, for sure.
to be engaged with your friends and people around you, and to be able to do things and know that you can do things and have the confidence to do them.
Good morning, Emily. Lucinda, thank you for joining us this morning. So, we're talking to Rebecca. We're talking about just a different way to learn. We're talking about the Techno Tutor process. How did you decide on that? This is the program. You were part of building this, right?
I wasn't I'm part of bringing it to the United States.
Okay.
So I got involved in it right at the beginning when it came to the United States. But then again, I was looking for it.
Mhm.
And it is true when they say, ask and you shall receive. It just came to me.
Put yourself out there sometimes.
Yeah, it was interesting when I first started reading about the tool. I thought, well, why didn't I think of this?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because it seems so obvious sometimes when you find a solution for something, you're like, seriously?
Yeah, it's the simplest thing. It literally is like a metronome or a cone on a field. And then the process that you use while you're interacting with it, because it's a tool rather than some magical thing. It's the engagement involved. And again, it's just a little bit every day. And you start to see changes in the children. It's like, I can participate, I can engage. And then, maybe some of that programming where they were in a state of agitation and uncertainty, that slowly starts to fall away.
When I had asked for a little bit more clarification when we were talking, because we had a great conversation. But then you sent me this kind of a case study. And it was an
Oh,
adult, it wasn't an adult. So I mean, there is no limit to this program or learning method, really.
yeah. Well, there's a lot of research behind this too. With the Masters of Education in Reading, there's a lot of research that is is basically saying the same thing that I'm saying. Even there's a reading research manual where they actually talk about how if a child continually experiences uncertainty, then that is what becomes the unconscious of them. And then they have resistances to things and they don't even know why they do. But also in the 1920s, there was a lot of research on vocabulary by someone named Johnson O'Connor. He was hired by General Electric, which I think is now absorbed by AT&T, to figure out why some of their employees learned faster than other employees. And what he found after years of research was that the employees that were more changeable and could readily learn new things as they came along, they had a better vocabulary.
Mm.
So in the article that I sent you, that was from a book by Your Natural Gifts by Margaret Broadley. And in his studies, he had found that your vocabulary will determine how far you go. So you can have someone who has an intrinsic ability to, say, organize companies, to go in and reorganize a company. And he's doing his all his youth and vigor. Does really well in his 20s, and he gets into his 30s and suddenly it's not working as well anymore. So he went to the institute to figure out what was missing, and what he found was his vocabulary. So this research has shown that you can have a natural gift, but if it isn't called out by name or structured, you begin to lose your gift. And people that may not have had as strong a gift, who have a strong vocabulary, will continue to grow even through their adult years. Now that's astounding.
Yeah, it was pretty incredible that I was just like, wow, it makes sense though.
It makes sense that we use our power
Mhm.
to see patterns and to call things out by name, to structure ourselves in ways that we recognize what we're doing with ourselves. So, yeah, that's an incredible article.
Yeah. I was really blessed when in my grade school level to have such a focus on vocabulary. It was always a big thing in my family. My parents, well, my dad was not an English speaker, so we learned to speak English together.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
it was one of those things where we really, I feel like it bolstered my vocabulary because we had to push each other.
That's a really good point.
Right?
Because in the research as well, they found that parents don't need to have higher degrees.
Mhm.
A parent can learn with the child.
Yeah. And we had that moment together, my dad and I, and it was really awesome, actually,
Yeah,
growing
yeah.
up to learn with your dad. It was
Yeah,
fun.
and a lot of it is just walking the ordinary, and then you see the whole in the parts, and that's a natural ability for a human to do.
Mm.
But when you're building yourself and your neurons within yourself, and there's a lot of fear and anxiety and uncertainty, then that's becomes the meaning behind your words. So with Techno Tutor, we call it a focus builder and a word purifier, because you're restructuring your words so that you can process more effectively.
Can you talk a little bit more about the program and what it kind of incorporates, just in case you've got a mom, a dad, a caregiver out there that's really struggling, their kid's not reading, they're not connecting with anybody, everybody's stressed out. Like where does this even what does it look like?
Well, the physical process is that I would come into your home because children are more comfortable there.
Yeah.
And I would show you how this works. And then if you decide to get this tool, there's a lot of support. Like I may come back and sit and walk through things as many times as a parent needs to feel comfortable in using the tool. And children also begin to like the tool because they're self-generating. They're doing it themselves and they see the changes themselves. So there's twice a month, there's parental meetings on Zoom where people can talk about how they're using the tools together and also hear other people's perspective and things that they're doing within using the tool. So there's a lot of support. There's a community of people doing this, and there's a lot of support from me, the person that you would work with, in relation to getting to know the tool and using the tool. And the presentation and sitting down and looking at this is absolutely free.
What do you say to naysayers?
What do I say to naysayers? It's experiential. You have to try it.
Yeah.
I know without a doubt from my experiences that it's the most simple practice and it has a very great and long-term effect on the child. And there is research behind it to back it up. So that's what I say to the naysayers.
Good. I really think it's important. I always tell my kids, and we've had this, and I learned it from one of my girlfriends, Sharon. So I will give you credit for it. Do a no thank you taste. Taste it, and then you never have to taste it again. No, thank you. Not for me, whatever it is in life. And we've taken that thought process to
Yeah.
everything. So, you know what I mean? If you're struggling and you're at your wits' end, then maybe give this a whirl. Something might change for you. And I think it's just really important
I
for
will
people to try.
it will definitely change. I mean, I didn't just get involved in this without going out and trying it, and it's also I was looking for something like this based on my own discipline that I've had throughout my life. I can also say that
Classically trained violinist. There's a lot of discipline there.
probably 15 years ago, I wouldn't have done this.
Okay.
I mean, I may not say everything perfectly, but I'm much more at ease, even
Hmm.
in speaking and talking. I don't worry about making mistakes. It's like my changeability has grown, and it's awesome. It's enlightening. You like to remove the weight of fear because you know that you can self generate is the greatest gift that you can give to a child.
I agree.
I also want to say I was looking at this lately with things like ChatGPT, the AI services that we have where you have to write in prompts. I'm seeing books like how to write prompts for ChatGPT. And I thought, well, if you have a good vocabulary and you know how to bullet things with ease, then you don't need to read a book about how to write prompts for GPT.
This is all very disturbing. How do I talk to my robot to make my robot talk better for me?
Right,
Like,
right. And
I
it's
never thought we'd be living here, but here we are.
Well, my one son is in computer programming,
Mhm.
and he was telling me that he went to ChatGPT to write basic programs. So he has a big program he has to write. There's some, rudimentary things he has to put into the program. Rather than writing it out for 3 hours, if his language is really good, he can just put the prompts in. ChatGPT or some of the Mid-Journey is another one. It's a visual one. It just writes it in 3 seconds, and you don't need as many workers.
The problem is we're losing them in the rudimentary building bits.
Right. That's a very good point.
I feel like that's the problem, like really in a nutshell, what our problem is currently is
Right.
that we have lost, we don't do cursive handwriting anymore. Like it wasn't about the handwriting, it wasn't about the cursive, it was about the
The f
practice.
the
The
physical engagement
Yes,
and the self-generation. Yeah,
right.
the coordination on so many levels, all of that is really important.
Yeah.
So with AI, it's almost as though this generation is going to have to be reading and processing at a higher level in order to get those jobs
Yeah.
because no parent wants to continue to parent when your children are, 35 and 40.
You're not coming back.
Yeah.
I'm kidding.
So, I mean, I think it is a scary thing, but we have solutions. We have solutions for this.
Yeah.
So, I mean, if their language skills are really good, then their presence, in seeing the relationships between things and bringing out the natural human ability to recognize patterns will come forward. And then they'll be able to easily use AI in ways that support them to do the best they can do.
Anything else that you wanna say about Techno Tutor? How do people get a hold of you?
I'm on LinkedIn. I'm also would I give out my telephone number?
Well, if you'd like to, or if there's a website or an email address, I can put it in the chat afterwards.
Okay,
That way
you
people
can
can
put it
find
in the
you.
yeah, so my email address is rebdalmas, the number 1, so rebdalmas1 at gmail.com.
I'm gonna leave that information in the chat also so you can get a hold of Rebecca in case you really need her, or maybe you wanna talk more about the program, maybe you have questions that weren't answered. I always
Yeah.
wanna leave that door open, and if you've got open houses or things or I know you're working with a few Falmouth school system situations and some foundations, but as that grows, I want you to be able to keep up with us and let us know where to find you.
Well, as I said before, the presentation for Techno Tutor is free, and we don't really have a lot of direct stuff online because it's very experiential. We can think too much about all this. So the best thing is for a person to physically experience it. And that's come from multiple years of sharing this with people that I've arrived at that point where you need to experience it. And to experience it is free.
I love that. And we've got a couple of mom groups that watch our show, and everyone is really stepping into a different educational forum right now. Private schools, smaller schools, homeschool groups. We've got a lot of different avenues to reach out to people for an educational process, whether it's through our library friends. And I really want you to at least meet people and to have people say their no thank you taste, or maybe it's like the thing that solved all of their problems.
Yeah.
You just never know.
It
That's what
helps
we're
you
here for.
it helps you get to a processing speed where you start sorting out a lot of uncertainties that you have within yourself, and that's awesome. And we see this mirrored in other systems now where they talk about how we're aware of how things are resonating in our bodies and we can sort them out.
Rebecca, thank you so much for joining us this
Thank you
morning.
for having me.
If you want more information on Rebecca, like I said, I'll leave it in the chat. Make sure you follow, like, subscribe our YouTube channel. We really love our community events. We had a great one yesterday at the Mashpee Commons. We have 3 more for our Christmas markets all week long. The lemonade stand is delivering to you. We've got our full list of schedules, whether it's trivia, music bingo, whether it's interactive activities with the kids. We're really, really telling you to get out there and just be a part of life. I know it gets easy when you're on your phone and you're on your computer and you don't want to
Mhm.
leave your house, but it's really essential that you get out in the world and talk to people. Especially this holiday season. I think that we get more stressed out as the holidays are here.
Yeah, definitely.
Take a minute for yourself, exercise your brain a little bit, and we hope to see you out. Hank will not be on the show with me tomorrow. He's got an appointment. He'll be on with me on Thursday. So we will see you. We'll connect on social at some point this week. Have a great week, and we'll talk to you soon. Bye, everyone.